Hey everyone, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Get Super with me, Joshy G. And today I have with me the talented Mr. Nick Ghanbarian from the punk band Bayside. Nick, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing good. Somehow, with all the craziness in the world, I'm somehow busier than ever. So I'm just trying to balance everything, and makes me a little crazy, but I'm doing good.
I'm with you on that, especially, we're practicing social distancing. We are not clearly in the same room, but we are lucky enough to have you on the show. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. So tell me about we're going to get to your love of pop culture and all things nerdy in a minute, but you were obviously in a band called Bayside. You are the bass man, believe it or not. Am I correct? Yes. You started in that band in 2004. What was that like? Were you a big music fanatic growing up? What were some of the bands that influenced you growing up before you obviously joined this band?
Yeah, I think my musical, band guy journey started when I was about 14, and I was still living in New York then, and I started to get into more punk rock stuff like Bad Religion, and of course the whole Green Day and Offspring explosion happened. So there wasn't a big punk scene on Long Island where I grew up, but there was more of a hardcore scene. So I started to go to shows, and it just seemed really logical to me to actually start a band. So started just jamming with friends, and then at really my senior year, I was still 17. I wound up playing bass in the first inception of the movie Life, which wound up being a decent sized band, and then went on to be in a little bit more of a hardcore band called Silent Majority, and then didn't really play music or wasn't really in bands in my early 20s. And then in 2004, like you mentioned, I was actually working at Urban Outfitters on Long Island, and through a mutual friend, our singer Anthony wound up working for me at Urban Outfitters. So I was kind of his boss for a little bit. He just worked in between tours and all that type of stuff. And one day in spring of 2004, he's like, I'm going on tour all summer. I kind of feel like my bass player is going to quit. So if you want to be in a band again, think about being in my band. So he came home. He's like, well, not only did my bass player quit, but my drummer quit. So I need half a new band. So it was a weird point in my life where I was just like, I'm happy with my job. I know it's just a mall job, but the Urban Outfitters was actually kind of really good to employees. I don't know how they are now, but back then they were. And I was just like, do I really want to give up this steady job that I see a career path for? And I was just like, yeah, who cares? I'm just going to be in a band. I'm 24 at the time. I'm like, this might be my last shot. Bayside's already touring. They have a couple of records out. Let's do this. So that's kind of where it started for me with Bayside, and it was fun at that point. Even though I just joined, that was already the biggest band that I had been in, and we went on to do and still are doing way bigger things. And it's been this year's actually our 20th anniversary, so we had a whole tour plan that we wound up having to cancel because of COVID-19, but this was supposed to be a big year for us, but we'll push it to next year.
Yeah, I mean, pushing it to next year is probably not a bad thing, but also too, like you were saying, being in a band like Bayside for such a long period of time, it kind of gives you guys a little bit of, not clout per se, but there's some prestige that you guys have been around for such a long time. And are there bands that are out there now that you look up to or inspire to be, or motivate you guys to be better? Not necessarily, like an arch enemy per se, but someone that you're like, oh man, that band's really, really cool, and it inspires us to do really, really well.
Yeah, I think we've been lucky enough over, we've been a band consistently for 20 years, no hiatus, no breakups. We've put out records consistently, and we're very cognizant of bands that kind of paved the way for us, and we've gotten to share the stage with a lot of bands that we looked up to that are a little bit older than us, like the Bouncing Souls or Bad Religion. We've done a bunch of touring with Alkaline Trio. So those are the kind of bands that we knew that maybe we don't exactly sound like them, but that's the career trajectory that we wanted. So I look more towards like a band like the Bouncing Souls, where at this point they've been a band for 30 something years, I want to say. And they still tour, they still put out records, but I know that they all also are working class people, and they all have jobs and do other things. So I kind of feel like that's our career path at this point. We're only turning 20 right now, but we had no signs of really slowing down or stopping touring or anything like that. But we kind of had this as like our big year where we were just gonna kind of almost like pat ourselves on the back a little bit. It's been such a weird 20-25 years of being in the music industry, really, because you think back to late 90s, early 2000s, you had Napster and music just started to become free, and all we had to do to combat all the difficulties of being in a band is become like half musician, half business person. And we've really, really done a good job of never needing to do anything we didn't want to as far as creativity. And then we also just always found a way to put out the next record, go on the next tour, support ourselves. And like I said, kind of just always be like half business person, half musician, which is, kids ask all the time, like, what's the biggest piece of advice you could give? And I'm just like, you have to mean what you are doing for sure, but you also have to really pay attention to the business side of your band, because you're the management. Technically, you might have managers and booking agents, but you have to really be in control and do what you want to do, but also know your numbers, know everything that goes on, merchandise wise, touring wise. You have to really be in tune with that stuff. The days of just being in a band and getting drunk and doing whatever are long gone. You gotta pay attention too, on top of being in a band.
Well, that's so funny, that you say that, because we have friends in so many different industries, whether it's they're actors or professional wrestlers or professional athletes or musicians. And that's kind of, I was talking about that to some people earlier before the show, is that there's this whole new wave of people that kind of grew up in the 80s and early 90s that, they're doing things completely different than people that did it in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, where the days of partying and doing, drugs and all this stuff is not as rampant anymore, because these kids now, and I say that, loosely, because I'm obviously, you and I are around the same age, they're into the things that, you and I love, like video games and nerd stuff. And they would rather sit at home or on a tour bus or whatever and play video games or Switch or, read comic books or whatever, than do those things. Yeah. And that's a testament to some of these bands that are being responsible and, looking at their stuff in a business. They'd rather, not go out and, be crazy. They'd rather stick and try to, really focus on the business aspect of it. So that's really kind of cool that you guys have taken that route. Now, going back to growing up, kind of segueing into some nerdy stuff, what were some of your biggest things that you loved as a child growing up, pop culture wise?
I mean, I was born in 1980, so I was really. My mother tells me this because I don't have a memory that early. I was just absolutely mesmerized by Star Wars, like before I even had memories. So,
really?
That's for sure my entryway into collecting as a kid and just being, into Star Wars. But then, a lot of collectibles and just action figures and stuff started with Kenner and Star Wars, and everything after that, I was the perfect age for He-Man, Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe, Thundercats, like any of that stuff. I also was an only child until I was 9, so I got it all. Until my sister was around, I got it all. We went to Toys R Us every week, bought things. It was heaven, really.
What, besides Star Wars, obviously, which we'll get into in a moment, what was one of your favorite franchises? You mentioned like 4 or 5 or 6, but what was the one behind? What was the second place one? What took place after Star Wars?
I would say for sure G.I. Joe is a big one. There were so many figures, and then just that daily, like after school, probably like 3:00 episode. I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 episodes, but G.I. Joe is for sure a big one, because I also remember there just being like on the block, all the kids had G.I. Joes, so we'd get together and just and go out in the yard and play with them and stuff. That was definitely my the second one, because after a while, like G.I. Joe kept going and kept making more and more figures, and Star Wars kind of ended at a certain point, I think maybe in 85 or something like that. So once Star Wars was done producing new figures over at Kenner, I think Hasbro had G.I. Joe, and they just kept making stuff. So it seemed like endless amount of toys back then.
Now, were you a Joe fan or a Cobra fan? Very important question.
Ooh, yeah. You know, it's weird. It's like I feel like I just wound up wrestling with them.
Uh-huh.
It's like almost like I had the GI Joe and the Cobra side, but then I almost played WWE with them, if that makes any sense. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah, no,
weird.
I get it. I
Yeah,
did the same thing.
yeah. So I don't know. I don't back then. I mean, I would assume I just like GI Joe. That seems like more. I'm always more of the Jedi or light side or good guy type of
Oh,
person.
really?
So I would say that. But now when I really think about it, I really feel like I would just played wrestling with
Is it bad that I say that I'm a Cobra guy? I mean,
them.
I love the bad guys. I not
Even
just with
back then.
yeah, even GI
Oh
Joe.
yeah.
I thought they were the most interesting, and
Yeah.
it's funny when I look back at some of those episodes, and I'm like, man, Cobra Commander, all he wanted to do was just control the weather. What was so wrong with that? Like, maybe his
Yeah.
platform wasn't as bad as I thought, but
Yeah.
no, like with GI Joe or Transformers, like huge Megatron fan and
Yeah.
Soundwave.
They're
The
cooler.
bad guys,
The bad guys
they
are
always
cooler always.
they always appealed to me. I mean, being a big nerd, I have a Skeletor tattoo, and
Yeah.
that was because I just thought, even though Skeletor in the cartoon is such a bumbling idiot, to me he was way more fun than He-Man. But that's just me.
Yeah.
All right, so you were a big GI Joe fan. One last question about GI Joe. What was your favorite accessory for GI Joe? Or not accessory. You could say accessory, or you could say playset.
Yeah, I remember my hero, my dad coming home one day finding just that huge like tri-level like battle station thing. I don't remember what it was called.
The battleship?
Not the
flag?
battleship. It was kind of like almost like tan or khaki colored, and it kind of folded like up to 3 levels.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember what it was called, but that was, we lived on Long Island. There was a couple of Toys R Us's. We had a smaller toy company called Child World, and like I said, we used to go every week, and I was definitely a spoiled kid until I was 9 or so, but that was something that my dad, I don't even remember how much it would have been back then in the 80s. Like, I remember it being expensive though, so maybe it was pushing $100, but yeah, I remember him coming home and I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe you found it. But we never had the aircraft carrier. That one was super hard to find, so I never got that one.
I had a friend that had it, and it was probably one of the coolest things that I've ever seen as a young child, seeing how much space that flag, I think it's the flag, took up. I was like, how, like, it was in his basement or whatever, but it was one of the coolest accessory pieces or play sets that I remember as a childhood. So that was always the holy grail, and people ask me like, oh, well, you could technically buy it now, would you? And I'm like, no, there's no way, because I don't have the room for it already.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's a huge issue, just even with collecting, Star Wars Black Series or something. It's like, I have them all. I have them all on a shelf. They look nice, but my girlfriend Nicole is just like, can we get rid of these things? I'm like, no, what are you talking about?
It
takes up too much space.
Nicole? Yeah, what is wrong with her? All right, so let's get right into it. Star Wars. You said you had a love for it even before you had memories. What was it about Star Wars that you loved as a child and maybe as an adult?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I just liked that it was fun when I was a kid, but I've maintained my fandom, and it's something near and dear to me, to the point of I have a podcast with some friends called Thank the Maker, and we really dive deep into stuff, and it's really at this point coming up with reasons why it's generational and why we still love it, and we love it more than ever, really. So I think growing up, it was obviously lightsabers and good guys and bad guys and the whole hero's journey of Luke Skywalker and all that type of stuff. But at this point, it's really more to me about community and obviously collecting. I do a decent amount of collecting, but I think I've really been turned on by the community and kind of like the family aspect of Star Wars, because it is a unique thing that it's 40 something years old at this point, and it still holds a place in people's heart. And I think that it's a really unique thing in a sense. Yes, of course, it's a massive intellectual property in the entire world, but I just think it's a very unique thing that what could you pass on to generations other than like sports teams or like family things here and there? This is like a giant piece of history that continues to be passed on generation to generation. Obviously, some people, have problems with other things, with new movies, old movies, whatever it is. People, have their issues with it. But I think that the fact that it's, here to stay once Disney kind of took over. I think it really does show that it's going to continue to be passed on generation to generation, and you get to see that kind of that battle of good and evil and hope and you know, friendship, family, all that type of stuff. I think is really important, not only for a kid to see, but also for people to maintain as they grow up, because I think, you know, people get beaten down by the world and by the system and become grumpy old people, and if you lose sight of that, then the world wins, you know. So I feel like I always find a way to overall keep a good like childlike fun mentality to myself. And Star Wars for sure helps me, because it's something, like I said, I mean, it was there when I was a super young, it was there again in my late teens, and it's here again in my mid to late 30s. So I look forward to where it goes. And I really do at this point say I like Star Wars mostly because of the community. I think that's what keeps me around.
See, I think that's a great way of looking at it. I know there are a lot of fans out there, you know, whether it be Star Wars fans, Marvel fans, DC fans, even wrestling fans, you know, they want to complain about something as opposed to just embrace it. I mean, look, there are certain movies that I may not be a fan of, but to think, you know, 20 years ago, I would be able to see, you know, a Justice League movie, or, you know, another set of Star Wars sequels. Like, that to me is like, you know, a whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, whether they're good or bad is one thing, but just to sit back and embrace it and be like, oh my God, this is really, really cool that, you know, they are making these movies where, you know, 20 years ago, you wouldn't even thought that they were going to be making a whole set of, you know, prequels to Star Wars, or another set of sequels, or, you know, whatever the case may be. So sometimes, yes, I get that fans are passionate and they love something so much that they want it to be perfect, but taking a step back and embracing it, especially like you said, in a community aspect of it, is another thing that I think that people are missing when it comes to these big fandoms of pop culture that, you know, people love, especially being Star Wars. Do you have a particular character that you love or maybe relate to?
It's funny. If you asked me 30 years ago, I would have said Luke for sure. But I feel like the older I get, I actually feel like Leia is the real glue that keeps everything together. Because I think that she's really. I think she's a powerful leader. She's the one who like doesn't complain. She's the one that doesn't. Her kind of like moral compass doesn't sway ever. I think she's always like. I think she's always doing the right thing and always moving things in the right direction, and really a part of the rebellion and then the resistance. When you really look at Luke, kind of swayed. Was he going to turn? Was he not? Then he just ran away when things got really tough in the sequels. Han, again, Kylo came around and turned. Han ran away. Leia was the one that just always kind of, from the beginning of, like, you know, really you see her in Rogue One, if we're only talking about the films here, she's leading that. And then all throughout that original trilogy, she's taking care of business. And then all the way through to the sequel trilogy, she's still the one kind of keeping a rebellion going, taking on some new Jedi Master training with Rey. I think she's just somebody who's constantly taking care of business and doesn't let her like resolve ever change, which I think is something you look at as an adult. And I think I respect that more than someone like Luke or Anakin, who's, you know, they could be whiny and also fail a lot. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like I look at someone like Leia who just has the resolve to like stay the course, and I think that that's something I noticed as an adult, which I respect a lot.
That's a really great answer. I've never really thought of it that way, so I appreciate that answer. Now, you saying that you're a big Star Wars collectible, obviously you have action figures and stuff. Is there one prized possession? Is there one holy grail that you have collected over the years that you just love endlessly and is quite possibly your favorite piece?
I mean, I have everything from when I grew up, and they're actually all in my parents' house back home. So all that stuff is near and dear to my heart. I played with all of it, so I don't have any of it in like good condition at all. And really only my collecting kind of started to take off again in the last 5 or 6 years. And it's so much more about finding the things than having the things. I love the journey and the searching and then finally seeing things. Yeah, that's so much more fun to me, because I display them with the numbers out the spine of the box with the numbers out. So if you go in the room, it just looks like books on a shelf to me. Yeah. But I would say in the most recent years, I've really kind of gotten more love and respect for the prequel era, mostly due to the animated series, the Clone Wars, and I've really started to understand and like the character of Anakin a lot more. And my favorite collectible that I've gotten in the last 5 years or so is kind of a vintage style 3 3/4 inch size Anakin, but technically he's Darth Vader. So it says Darth Vader on the card, but it's pre-Darth Vader suit. So I just like that, towards the last act of Revenge of the Sith, he's not in his suit yet, but he's technically Darth Vader. And I just like that, the dichotomy of that. Because you think Darth Vader, you think the suit. But there was a couple of minutes in the end of Revenge of the Sith where he still looked like Anakin, but he was Darth Vader. So I that's my favorite toy that I have that is just sitting there, that just because of seeing Anakin, but it still says Darth Vader. I think that's a cool little different take on things. Because like I said, Darth Vader is always synonymous with that suit. So I just like that this one toy is a little different.
Yeah, it's funny you said that the promo picture you sent over that you're wearing, I thought it was a hockey jersey or something hockey related, and someone was like, "No, it's an Order 66 shirt," and I was like, I had to go back and look at it again. I was like, "Oh, what a great shirt!"
I know it could have been a Mario Lemieux shirt. That's what
I thought. I thought, we both being hockey fans, I see the hockey stuff behind you, so that's exactly what I thought. I was like, "Oh, it's a hockey jersey," but nope. I was corrected. It is an Order 66 shirt. So no statues, no 6 scale. Have you not dipped into that pool yet? Is it a dangerous pool?
I haven't. It's dangerous for sure. If there's anything I don't allow myself to do, I really focus on one thing. Because if I just am collecting all Star Wars, I will have even less money than I have now. So I stick to the 1 or 2 lines that I like. But I do a lot of, we go, back in the old world, we would go to Frank and Sons all the time, and I would spend so much time looking at the 1/6 scale stuff in certain booths over at Frank and Sons. And yeah, I mean, if we had more space in our tiny house, sure. If I had my own little, like, whatever you want to call it, man cave or whatever, absolutely. Those 1/6 scales, again, specifically that Anakin one is a beautiful, beautiful toy. So, or collectible. So, it's in my future, I would say. Because I feel like there's just too much good stuff out there, so I can't just stay in my lane of specifically the Black Series is what I've been collecting.
It's funny you say that, because we had a pro wrestler on last time. His name's Matt, and he also has a set of rules when he comes collecting, in the sense that, it's funny when you talk to these people, whether they be, pro wrestlers or actors or movie executives, this, that, and the other, everyone has their own little set of rules. And, I appreciate the fact that you remind me of me, in the sense that, like, look, if I was to be let out in the open, I would try to collect everything, but I have to stop myself, because there are certain things, like, there are 6 scales that I know that if I get into those Hot Toy 6 scales, I mean, I own a few, but once that dragon is unleashed, there's no going back.
Well, that's what happened to me. That's for sure what happened. I started to collect these, and I started with just my favorite characters, and then I'm looking at them on the shelves, and I'm like, oh, I have 15, 16, 17, 18, but not 19. And then I have 20. I'm like, I guess I have to get number 19 now. And then now there's like 112 of them. So it became more of an obsessive thing with having all the boxes in mint and getting all the numbers. But then also, like I said earlier, actually the huge part of the fun is just searching and finally finding it. Yeah.
Do you consider, like, buying them online, like eBay, whatever? Is that cheating, or do you have to
It's just less fun. I definitely have had no other choice in the last 2 or 3 months. I found some stuff at Target, which is, it's kind of a lost cause usually. In the last 2 months, so I found some stuff, but there's been some new releases that I was just like, I might as well pre-order this, and even that gets a little sketchy, just because I joke all the time and just say that I collect boxes, because I never open anything. So finding mint boxes is like a part of it too, which is why you can't really just go to retail places, because things come in damaged already. And that's part of the pain of it. Sometimes you find what you need, but it's just not in good condition, so you don't buy it. You leave it there on the shelf.
So you're not a fan of letting them breathe, huh? You don't want them out of the box. They're staying in there.
Yeah, the couple of things that I open are doubles. I'll buy a couple. I'll buy two and open one.
I used to be that way, and then I was just like, I can't do that. I can't. Yeah,
it's not for all of it, just for specific ones.
Well, before we get into this small workout, don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. At least I don't think I will. I always ask this question of every guest. I obviously am a big pro wrestling fan, and the majority of my guests have been pro wrestlers, with the exception of a few. So I will ask you this, since you somewhat know what wrestling is. If you were to able to create a pop culture WrestleMania main event, which would be anything from like the Hulk versus Wolverine or Spider-Man versus Superman. It could be anything. It could be a tag team match. It could be, Spider-Man and Luke versus Vader and Thanos. Anything you want.
Yeah.
Battle Royal, anything you want. What would your pop culture main event be?
I'll stick with Star Wars, and I'll go tag team, and I'll go Jedi Padawan, or let's see, Jedi and Sith. That makes more sense, right? So I'll go Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, so that era of Jedi versus I'll get a little wacky and go off the beaten path here, and I'll go Count Dooku and Asajj Ventress. Those are it'll be a little mixed tag team action there.
All right, and what's the result? Who wins?
Wow.
Who's going over?
I would say Qui-Gon would be the X factor there. So I would say Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan would win that one.
All right. I like that. What we're going to do is if you want to make some room, we're just going to do a workout. And the workout, most of these workouts, I run a company with a WWE superstar. His name's Seth Rollins. And we own this company called DeadBoys Fitness, and basically these workouts that we create are workouts that you could do in home and pretty much anywhere. And today's workout is no exception, in the sense that you really just need a space. We're going to be doing some jumping jacks, which we'll go over, and I'll show you what I'm looking for. And then what we're doing, what's called an athletic burpee or a no push-up burpee. You're not going to be falling to the ground. You're basically dropping into a plank position and standing right back up. The way this workout goes, the way I originally wrote it, is 7 rounds. We're only going to do 4. I'm not going to, it's just more for demonstration purposes. But if you're going to be doing these at home, it's for 7 rounds. So the way this will work is you're going to do 30 seconds of jumping jacks, which we'll get up and I'll show you. And then with the remaining time, you're going to do 10 athletic burpees. Whatever's remaining in that 2 minutes, get to rest. So you'll probably have maybe about 45 seconds to a minute rest. And then we'll do it again at the top of the 2-minute mark, and we'll do that 4 times. So really, it's like an 8-minute workout, but you're gonna have plenty of rest in between.
Gotcha.
All right.
How is my camera set up? Do I need to go lower for the ground, or?
Just as long as we can see you. I mean, I'm gonna trust that you're doing the no push-up burpees, but I'm sure I'll see your head bouncing up and down. I'm gonna adjust my camera. Just consider me your Qui-Gon Jinn to your Obi-Wan.
Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna move this.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take these headphones out.
And Nick is going to move his computer. And again, guys, for those of you that are watching, remember, these workouts are made to be done anywhere, in your living room, in your bedroom, in your garage, and they're all body weight movements. Okay, so I'm going to slide that table back, and I'm going to make some room. So hopefully you can see me. I know I'm kind of getting far. Okay. Perfect. All right, perfect. So the way this is going to work, I'm going to set a timer, and every 2 minutes, we're going to start a new round. So it's going to start off, Nick, with jumping jacks. So that's one. You're going to do 30 seconds of jumping jacks, and then I'm going to, there's my floor. An athletic burpee looks like this. You're going to throw your hands to the ground, throw your feet back, throw them forward, stand up. That's one. All right, I'll assume you're doing them. So you're going to do 10. Okay, so 30 seconds of jumping jacks. Got it. Here, I'll do that so you guys can see me. 30 seconds of jumping jacks, followed by 10 athletic burpees.
Got it.
All right. You let me know when you're ready, my friend.
I'm ready.
All right, everybody, here we go. We are going to start in 10 seconds. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So Nick and I are doing 30 seconds of jumping jacks. Once those are done, we're gonna go right into athletic burpees. We are 10 seconds in, Nick, 20 seconds to go. And the goal of this is to get your heart rate moving. Remember, we're only doing 4 rounds. This is programmed for 7. All right, Nick, we got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right into those 10.
Okay.
1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
All right.
All right, 1 round down, 3 to go, and we have 1 minute of rest.
Sweet. The only workout I've really done during all the quarantine and all that stuff, I've actually just gotten into running. So I've been doing 2 or 3 miles a day, which is more than I've ever really been able to do, which is good.
Well, you look good, my friend. You look good. What is your favorite hockey team? I know you got your VGHC stuff on, so do I. What is your favorite hockey team?
I grew up with the Rangers. That was my other big love when I was growing up. Besides Star Wars, I was
not the Islanders, huh?
No, thank goodness. No, I grew up on Long Island, so that's something that for sure people would assume, but it was more of a family thing where we were Ranger fans growing up. So very happy with that decision.
All right, here we go. Round number 2, starting in 3, 2, 1, and go. All right. Starting round number 2, again, the goal is to get as many jumping jacks as you can in 30 seconds. Normally, we would be keeping count of these jumping jacks, but for demonstration purposes only, we're just moving as fast as we can for 30 seconds. 10 more seconds, Nick. 3, 2, 1, on to those 10 no push-up burpees. 2, 3. Look at that, 1 minute rest. 2 down, 2 to go.
So yeah, Nicole, my girlfriend's from Winnipeg, so this is a big hockey household. So we got Duck season tickets and hockey on all the time, basically.
Now, I know Nicole is a big Star Trek fan. Is there any beef? Star Trek, Star Wars beef, or no?
Until recently gotten into Star Trek with her. She likes a lot more than I do. I appreciate it. I really did like the original series and Next Generation, and everything else kind of, it's a little too low impact for me.
Yeah.
Not enough action. I let her take the lead on that one.
All right, we got 10 seconds before we start round number 3. We got 2 more rounds to go, bud. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and go. All right, we're doing 3 of 7. Normally we'd be doing 3 of 7, but we're only gonna do 4 rounds today. Again, just moving fast, moving quick. 30 seconds of jumping jacks, 10 athletic burpees, hopefully with a minute rest. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and athletic burpee time. 4, 6, 8, 10.
7. I don't remember.
We got 1 minute rest, and then we got our final one. We'll take a breather, ask you a couple more questions, and then that's it.
I appreciate this. Life's been hectic lately between, I feel like I have like 5 jobs all of a sudden. So
yeah,
it's today's been nonstop, and I actually haven't gone for a run in like 2 or 3 days. So this feels good.
Well, when we're done, if you want to finish the other 3 rounds, you're more than welcome to.
I may do that.
All right, bud. Our last round in 20 seconds. Again, if you're doing this at home, the goal is to count how many jumping jacks you do within that 30 seconds. And then you would add that score, if you want to call it that, to the 10 burpees. And the goal is to remain consistent through all those rounds. All right, here we go. Our last round in 3, 2, 1, and go. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and right into those 10 athletic burpees. And that is it for the workout, ladies and gentlemen. That one,
all right,
will get your heart moving all in the right direction.
Ooh. It for sure is.
So catch your breath, Nick. See, Nick is doing way better than I am as far as the hydration goes. I'm terrible at that. So you're a big runner. What was the most what was the most miles you ran in a day? Are you training for a 10K, a marathon, half marathon?
I've never really done more than a 5K. I definitely suffer from being very bored when I'm running. So it's almost more of a mental thing where I'm glad that I could keep going and feel like I'm putting in the work, but not really like kill myself. Yeah. But it's more of a mental boredom that doesn't make me do more than like a 5K usually.
Sounds like you need an Obi-Wan, Nick. Sounds like you need someone in your head to help you get past over those humps. What are, before we let you go, what are some of your favorite movies in the past year, 2 years, 3 years that you just absolutely love outside of the Star Wars universe?
Pretty recently, I liked Knives Out, which was really cool. Like people call it like a whodunit, like kind of like Clue type of movie. Really cool group of actors too.
Which, by the way, Clue on his own is a great movie. For those of you that have never seen Clue, do yourself a favor. I think it's on Amazon Prime if you got it, but it's such a great movie.
Yeah. That one's one that sticks out for sure. I mean, like a lot of other people, I kind of really like the aesthetic and the storytelling of Wes Anderson movies. So I feel like Knives Out could have easily been a Wes Anderson type of movie, but I really like not his last movie, the one before that, Grand Budapest Hotel. So that's a good one for sure.
And outside of hockey, are there any other sports that you love? Are you a big football fan?
No, it's weird. I grew up playing, I grew up liking baseball. My household were Mets fans, so I was 6 when they won the championship. But really once hockey kind of took over my life, this is kind of judgy of me, I guess, but everything I valued and respected about hockey, I found like lacked in other sports. So maybe like not like other sports as much. So I'm somebody who pays attention and probably could carry on a conversation about like almost any major sport, but my heart's really 100% with hockey.
I agree with you to a certain extent. I think that, we both are wearing our VGHC, violent gentlemen. People ask me all the time, what's that mean? And I explain to people like, oh, hockey players are violent gentlemen. They're violent on the ice, but they're the biggest sweethearts off the ice. And even sometimes on the ice, these guys are amazing athletes and amazing representations of the sport. You don't see that in a lot of other sports. You see guys in hockey get, a puck to the face and they, spit out their teeth and they get stitched up and they're back on the ice in 5 minutes, and you see soccer, flops. And I'm not saying anything against soccer players. They're great athletes as well, but seeing these soccer flops, you're just like, oh, come on, guys. Like, really? Hockey
respect
players.
the art of hockey players and the athleticism, and you like almost see it devoid in other sports. To me, it makes me just like the other sports less. So I don't know, my opinion.
Yeah. Well, cool. Is there any, tell us some of your social media handles so the fine folks that are watching this awesome YouTube show can go and check out. I know you have Nick Bayside on Instagram, but tell people where we can find you.
Well, one of my, like I mentioned, I feel like I have like 5 jobs lately. So like you mentioned, at Nick Bayside, that's where I am on Instagram and Twitter. Those are my only social media accounts. Me and the drummer of my band, Chris, have a coffee roasting company called Legal Speed. That's at Legal Speed Coffee on Instagram. And then I mentioned previously, me, Brian from Yellow Card, and Adam from Story of the Year have a Star Wars podcast that's fairly new. It's been around a couple months. It's called Thank the Maker Pod. And you can find all the social medias at Thank the Maker Pod. And I have another thing, I can't even keep track. I do have like a little Star Wars community that I built called Batu Crew, which is based around Galaxy's Edge, the theme park. And I do some little like kind of bootleg merchandise for it, which people seem to like. So it's cool that's only on Instagram, and it's more of a community. I barely post pictures of myself. It's more about people having fun in Galaxy's Edge, and it's just one of my ways to kind of give back to the community and have a place for positivity when it comes to Star Wars, but more specifically Galaxy's Edge.
Is that a Disneyland gang, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm trying not to have it be a gang, but it's we haven't done meetings or anything like that. But
I don't. We talked about this on our last show. I don't know exactly what the official title is but when I first learned about these groups, I was so amazed. And obviously, they're non-violent. They're super cool, and some of them have really cool, like you said, shirts, jackets, whatever the case may be. So I was always curious about that type of community. So I'm glad that you have your own. That's really rad.
I know. I'm interested to see, because that's also on my radar, which isn't like my point with it. It's more about like celebrating people who are having fun there. But I feel like the more and more that it started to grow before Disney was shut down, I would start to see people that I didn't know wearing a shirt that I designed or a pin that I designed or something like that. So I felt like it was all moving towards a critical mass of like, maybe I should schedule a meetup and have, 20 people show up and we'll do a group picture or something. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. It's taken a little bit of a hit because the geo tag on the Instagram is always popping because of Disneyland, and the fact that the park kind of hurts that. But the people who are there are still having fun with it and interacting. And I just had to start posting less because there was just a lot less content, kind of. But I'm looking forward to whenever Disney opens again and getting that all rip roaring again.
And you mentioned it, Legal Speed Coffee. I'm a huge coffee snob. Folks, if you love coffee, I would definitely check that out. I'm a huge coffee snob as well. As we talked about this on past episodes with Claudio or Cesaro and Rollins and Becky. And so we are huge fans of your coffee. So if you haven't gotten that, I would suggest doing so. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Nick, thank you so much. You've been such a cool guest, and we are going to get you into the 6-scale game or statue game right before you know it. Trust me, you're going to be, the next thing you know, you're going to need another room for your house for all the hot toys. So you definitely got to, we'll figure out a way to get you one or two. But for those of you that are interested in entering any of our giveaways, every week we have our Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group. Use the hashtag Stay in Sideshow challenge going on right now. Thank you so much again, Nick, for joining us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. And don't forget to let your geek side show. See you guys.
Hey, did you like that video? Be sure to subscribe by clicking the S icon on your screen and click that bell icon to be notified whenever a new video is posted. If you'd like more info on the items featured in this video, click the link provided under Product Info. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to let your geek side show.